I'll be talking about the recreational medicinal use of marijuana and why it should be legalized throughout the nation because it is wise for our country's financial state and it will help reduce crime. For countless years, marijuana has been among the most harvested agricultural crops. It has been smoked for thousands of years and nothing's really changed. As 2017, there are 9 states in America that have legalized recreational use of marijuana. Another 20 states have legalized just medicinal marijuana, and more states are soon to follow. The outcome from legalizing marijuana have had huge impacts on these states, both good and bad. Because of this, the debates over this topic seem to be constant, so it's easy to see why it's one of the most controversial topics around. The recreational medicinal use of marijuana should be legalized throughout our nation because it is wise for our country's financial state and it will help reduce crime. Marijuana should be legal nationwide, and the American public agrees. According to an article from CBS News titled, "Marijuana Legalization Supports at All-Times High." As of 2017, 61% of all Americans think that marijuana should be legalized compared to 40% in 2011. The support for legalizing marijuana continues to grow as more and more people realize the benefits of this booming industry. A huge reason our country needs to develop an approach to legalize it is the amount of money and resources that go into trying to keep it from happening. In an article titled "The Case for Legalizing Cannabis" by Joe Cressy, he says that the criminalization of pot and the war on drugs has failed. It doesn't act as a deterrent, it's a waste of money. $1.2 billion is spent every year on this failed approach. Not only this, but if the recreational use of this drug is legalized, it will bring a whole new business industry to America. Tyler Kozlow, a journalist for Mary Jane, claims, nationwide legalization of marijuana could generate up to $20 billion in tax revenue for federal, state, and local governments. Our country is in serious debt, and allowing this industry to kindle will bring our country more jobs and high tax revenues. The legalization of marijuana does not just bring in high tax revenues, but it also helps to reduce violent crime. According to Alan Pike's 2017 article from Think Progress, Denver saw a 2.2% drop in violent crime rates in the first year after the first legal recreational cannabis sales in Colorado. In Washington, violent crime rates dropped by 10% from 2011 to 2014. As time goes on and more states legalize marijuana, the crime rates will continue to drop. A 2014 article titled Legalizing medical marijuana may actually reduce crime, studies say, shows that Robert Morris, an associate professor of criminology at UT Dallas, researched the effects on Part 1 crimes, which include homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, and auto theft. His study conclusion was, "We accounted for factors such as poverty, employment, education, even per capita beer sales. Among other things, we found no evidence of increases in any of these crimes for states after legalizing marijuana for medical use." The same article claims that THC, the active ingredient in pot, actually decreases the aggressive and violent behavior. Marijuana has even been directly linked to the decrease of overdoses from opiates. Colleen Barry, a journalist for the New York Times, states that using state-level death certificate data from 1999 to 2010, my colleagues and I found that annual rates of opiate overdose deaths decreased substantially, by over 25% on average, following the passage of medical marijuana laws compared to states that have still had bans. Despite the numerous statistics providing that legalization of marijuana is great for this country, some people still think that there is more bad than good to come out of this. The belief that marijuana smokers are unmotivated, reckless, and degenerate seems to be engraved in the minds of 33% of the Americans that believe marijuana should not be legalized. The CBS article titled "Marijuana Legalization Supports at All-Times High" They fear that by legalizing it, the health of many Americans would see negative impacts. According to a 2016 article titled "5 Reasons Marijuana Should Remain Legal," a recent Northwestern University study found that marijuana users have had abnormal brain structures and poor memory, and that chronic marijuana may actually lead to the brain changes resembling schizophrenia. The study also reported that the younger the person starts using marijuana, the worse the effect becomes. This is not the only point that opponents argue when discussing this topic. They also claim that marijuana is a gateway drug and will lead to the use of harder drugs. In David Trilling's article titled Marijuana Legalization, Research Review on Crime and Impaired Driving, he claims that the users of hard drugs engage in predatory crimes to feed their habits. He also declares that increasing accessibility means more youth will smoke or eat weed, and also that marijuana shops and growers are attractive targets for criminals, and that marijuana encourages alcohol abuse, and also that stone drivers are a public menace. Many of these claims have little evidence to support them, and some areas are even proven statistically inaccurate. Nevertheless, opponents will continue to argue about the dangers they believe will come from legalizing it. America is still in the early stage of nationwide legalization, so no one knows what will happen for sure. But if we look at the states that have legalized it, we can see that crime rates has actually decreased and the industry is booming by creating jobs and wealth in America. Because of this, I believe marijuana should be legalized throughout the United States. Many people share my view and many people oppose it. But this is an issue that will receive both praise and criticism as long as marijuana is a part of our country.